Welcome to another episode of Purchase to Profits. I'm Seth Ferguson. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our daily interviews with successful real estate investors. Our guest today is a land investor and residential landlord with nearly a decade of experience in the commercial real estate banking industry. Seth Williams is the founder of Real Estate Tipsters and living proof that anybody named Seth is a handsome, genuinely nice guy. Seth, welcome to Purchase to Profits. It's great to have you on the show.
Hey, Seth, or otherwise me. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. Meeting another Seth is always an interesting thing. It doesn't really happen too often.
Agreed.
Yeah. So to kick things off, tell us about your real estate goals right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for the past decade or so, I think my primary bread and butter real estate niche has been the land business. And I got into that business mainly because it was the first thing I was ever able to really succeed at. I had tried to do house flipping and, buying rental properties. And for one reason or another, I couldn't find good deals, or I just didn't know how to handle all the complexities of those kinds of businesses. But land was the first thing I ever found where I could get into it with, really literally just the cash in my bank account. I didn't have to take out loans or anything crazy like that. It's pretty low risk properties. I could buy them for very, very, very cheap, so that it was almost a guarantee that I'd make money on the back end. And I like that kind of thing. So, that's kind of been the thing that I've spent most of my time on. As time has gone on though, my goal has been really to diversify my income, which I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. I think the upside of that is, when you have diverse sources of income that don't really rely on each other, any one of them can disappear at any moment, and that's okay because you've got a bunch of other things that are making money for you. But the downside is you sort of become kind of a jack of all trades, I guess, for lack of a better term. If I had put all of my time into just land, I probably could have done thousands of deals. But because I've chosen to kind of divert my energy elsewhere, that's just kind of the con that goes along with that. So, really, in addition to the land business, I've got rental properties. I own a little bit of farmland now in Panama. I'm looking to get more of that. Also trying to get into the self-storage facility business. And, I've got a blog going, a lot of different things happening. So, yeah.
And at what point did you decide that, yes, I have to start diversifying my money? Did you hit a certain dollar volume at which point you said you had to do it?
Yeah, well, I think, the land business, I don't know of really anything else out there that has quite the combination of benefits that business model brings to the table. But one of the downsides is that, if you're constantly looking for new deals and flipping land all the time, even if you start branching out into seller financing, which can smooth out your income and make it more passive in nature, even then, it's just not a passive source of income. It's very active. You have to always be chasing after new deals. And, if you like that kind of thing, it's hard to beat that. But I wanted stuff that was more passive in nature, that would just kind of happen when I was sleeping, which is easier said than done. That's kind of like the holy grail everybody likes to talk about. But it takes a lot of, you really kind of have to know what you're doing. You have to plan it out and be very intentional about where you want to go. So for me, are you familiar with the Enneagram test by any chance? Have you ever heard of that?
Enneagram. No, do you want to explain that?
Yeah. So Enneagram, I just learned about it this past year, so it's kind of new to me as well. But it's this sort of a personality test that's really old. It's been around a long time, but it basically breaks you up into one of 9 different personality types. And I found, part of the reason I like it so much is it's really quick. It's 5 minutes to take the test, and it's free. And for me, it was very, very accurate. It's like somebody was reading my mind when I read the results. It kind of freaked me out a little bit. But anyway, I am a type 6. And a type 6 is called the loyalist. So I'm super loyal and committed when I make a decision to go after something. Nothing is going to stop me from doing that. I'll get it done. But sort of the vice to that personality type is I worry a lot. I'm always stricken with anxiety and thinking of all the possible ways things can go wrong in life. and it's kind of a curse if
Yeah.
you don't learn to get that under control. But anyway, because of that personality type and somebody who's always scanning the horizon for problems, that was part of why I thought diversification was necessary, because I didn't like this idea of having like one job and at any point out of my control, I could get fired from that and I'm just on my own. Like that really scared me. I didn't ever want to be in a position where that's where I could end up. So that was why I decided to do this diversification thing and prioritize that over just going all in on one thing, where even if I'm the best at the world at one thing, I mean, things change, there's cycles to the economy. I mean, maybe I might just get tired of working that business at some point. And the diversification strategy allowed me the freedom to, I guess, just ease my anxiety a little bit about that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And so, since you're a person who likes to think about worst case scenarios and really, run things through their mind a lot, how did you deal with that when you first started getting into the real estate? Because I'm sure lots of people out there watching right now, are worried about that kind of stuff getting started.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was a huge thing that I had to get over when I got into real estate, and that's part of why land made sense to me. I know my wife; she's actually more financially conservative than I am. I mean, the idea of taking out loans and risk is just like worst thing in the world to her. And to her credit, I mean, she saved me from tons of missteps by discouraging me from doing something really stupid. But
Yeah.
the land business, that was the first thing she was ever able to get on board with. And the reason was, I mean, first of all, like my first deal I ever did, for example, was a half-acre parcel of vacant land that I was able to buy for $331. I mean, even if I end up being completely wrong about everything in that deal and it was just a bad mistake, it's 331 bucks. It's not like I can't bounce back from that. It's
Yeah.
not like taking out a $50,000 loan and just losing everything and destroying my credit and my financial future for the next 7 years. I mean, it was very easy for me to stomach that kind of risk, if you can even call it that, because the way the whole business model works is you find a property that is worth, I don't know, X number of dollars, say 10,000 bucks. And the offer that I'm making to that person is usually like 10 to 20% of that value, like $1,000 to $2,000. And I mean, the first time I heard about that concept, it sounded crazy. Like, seriously, like people just give their property away like that, and they do. And to my mind, to this day, it kind of blows my mind. But it's kind of a numbers game and about finding the right people. These people that are willing to sell these kind of properties are almost never the type who will go out and put a for sale sign in their front yard. Like
Yeah.
they need you to come to them and give them a great big easy button. And when you know where to find those people, it's not that hard to do, honestly.
Yeah. And I guess for you then, just so somebody's watching and if they don't understand the whole land side, you acquire this property, you buy it at a discount. Do you
Yeah.
sit on it for X number of years before you move it? Like what happens then?
Yeah. I mean, my goal is to sell it as soon as possible. I
Okay.
mean, it basically, you know, like on the day that I take title to it, maybe even before then, I'm putting together a listing trying to sell the thing. Usually, like say if I bought a $10,000 property for 1,000, my initial listing price might be like 7,000, like 70% of its full market value. Doesn't always sell for that. I might have to lower it to like 5,000. I mean, heck, even if I have to fire sale it for like 3,000 bucks, I still made money in that deal.
Yeah.
What's the ROI on that? Like 200% or something like that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm horrible at math, but yeah, it's just the fact that you can get into deals with so much free equity on day one. It kind of sets it up so that the cards have nowhere to fall but in your favor. It's really, really hard to get hurt on these kind of deals.
Yeah. And would you say that you use a lot of cash or are you trying to finance? Because I know financing a patch of dirt is pretty challenging
Yeah,
and the
it
terms
is.
aren't that great. So how do you work it that way?
Yeah, I have always been strictly cash. I just kind of grew up like a Dave Ramsey disciple. So I've got this idea in my head that debt is just like a bad thing, which I don't think you can ever draw that sweeping of a conclusion. I don't necessarily think that, but there is sort of this ingrained thought process in me where like we just avoid loans at all costs, unless it's again, impossible to lose. So, and honestly, like that's kind of hurt me a little bit. I know there's ways to get financing, like interest free, 12-month interest free loans where you can go ahead and acquire properties like this very easily, almost kind of like business credit cards in a way. So like there's ways to do it, but I've never really done that. I've kind of been bottlenecked by the cash that I have at my disposal.
Yeah. In retrospect, do you wish you did source out debt so you could grow faster?
You know, sometimes I do. I think it's one of those things where on paper, when I look at my history and how long it's taken me to sell properties, like I think the longest I've ever sat on a deal was 15 months. And that's like bad. Usually I'm selling these things in, I don't know, 3 to 6 months on average. So, I mean, just given that, like, it's not like I ever have gotten stuck with one of these things. Usually when I own it and it hasn't sold yet, there's kind of this little panic feeling in the back of my mind, like, oh no, did I buy the wrong one? Is it going to sell? And that's kind of my Enneagram type 6 talking. But yeah, I mean, in retrospect, like, yeah, I can't see how I ever would have gotten hurt if I had chosen to take out debt to buy properties like this.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And
Yeah.
as you're building your business, have you developed any routines or kind of rituals that you follow?
You mean like on the personal side, like how I
Yeah,
get through my day, or like
yeah, just anything that's helped you, keep focused on real estate, helped you, keep an open mind to grow your business, that kind of thing.
yeah. Well, I think my practice of blogging on retipster.com has actually been a huge help because I'm always having these kind of conversations with folks like yourself. I mean, we've got our own podcast. I talk with a lot of other people on a regular basis, and even just the whole process of writing a very in-depth, detailed blog post. I usually spend like 8 to 10 hours on average writing one blog post, and the idea behind that is like when I put something out there, like I don't do it unless I'm convinced it's going to change somebody's life. And like, in order to do that, you have to really think through an issue and get to the bottom of it and come up with a solution to the problem that you're discussing. Like I don't put stuff out there just to make noise. Like I really want to make an impact. And through that process, it's kind of helped me to even challenge a lot of my own assumptions. Like I think it's very easy to flippantly say, I don't know, for example, yeah, if you're too busy in your business, go hire a virtual assistant. Done. Well, that's a very loaded statement. To hire a virtual assistant, you have to know where to look. You have to understand how much they're worth paying. You have to know what they're good at. You have to know when you need to fire somebody who's not performing. And there's all kinds of assumptions buried in that a lot of people gloss over and never talk about. So when I try to make sense of that for somebody else, it forces me to think through it too in a way that I might not have if I was just making a blanket statement like that. So I think just the practice of always writing stuff has helped me out a lot.
Yeah, no, for sure. And as now you are exploring self-storage options and all that stuff, what changes have you had to make in your business to allow you to move to that next level?
Yeah, probably the biggest one for me is to get over this whole idea that debt is evil because
Yeah,
self-storage facilities, I mean, for a small one, you're looking at like $500,000. Like it's not the kind of thing where you can take a few $100 on the side and just buy one.
yeah,
So it takes a lot more of a financial commitment and really, I mean, I would do this anyway, but in terms of like analyzing a deal and running the numbers and really understanding the feasibility of a project, like you don't just flippantly get into this because it sounds like fun. Like you really have to know what you're doing. And if you don't, I mean, there's a lot more penalty for failure. So I think the benefit that I've had is working in the commercial real estate banking space. I've actually gotten to finance a number of these and just understand, okay, what does a banker look at when they're trying to get confident in one of these deals? Like what do they need to see to know this is going to succeed? So, and that's something I don't think a lot of other investors probably understand it just as well, but they haven't had that banker's perspective. So, yeah, but I think just the shift from going after less expensive, super low risk deals and headed more towards something that, carries some more risk, but like the upside is huge and it can last a lifetime,
yeah.
like big cash flow that never goes away. And that's kind of what I'm after. So,
Yeah. And at what point did you realize that taking that step was right for you? Did something happen or?
I've actually have always been pretty interested in the self-storage idea, like as long as I can remember. I remember like even before I was in banking, I remember driving by those things and just thinking like, man, each one of those units is probably making X number of dollars. Like that just seems really smart and kind of like a better deal than a rental house because there's no toilets and people aren't calling you at 3 in the morning and that kind of thing. Just like for a lot of reasons, it made sense. And it does make sense. I mean, it's not just my intuition. Like when you look at all the benefits it brings to the table, like it's a pretty sweet deal. It just takes a lot more money and sometimes, partnerships and that kind of thing. And also just understanding the industry and what makes a good deal and what markets to steer away from and that kind of thing. So I'm sorry, what was your original question? What am
No,
I answering?
just what was the what was the light bulb that flashed in your head saying now I have to move to self storage because you had
Sure.
been pretty risk averse before
Yeah.
that point, right?
Yeah, I think part of the light bulb was, I mean, I know that to get into a deal that might be 500,000 or 1 million or $2 million, I mean, you have to put some skin in the game. You have to have a down payment to do that. Part of the reason I never even really thought about it was because I just didn't have the money. Or if I did, I didn't want to put all my eggs in that basket yet.
Yeah.
And I'm in a place now where I actually do have the resources to go after that kind of thing if I want. So just having that availability of liquidity is a big deal. And also with my rental units that I have, I'm honestly kind of getting sick of them. I think the problem that I've got is I don't own enough of them. Like the ones that I have, the income ends up being just kind of unpredictable. Like I could have 11 months that are great, and then I get slammed with some huge expense and it just destroys the whole year. I think once you own like 20 or more units, it starts to level out and make a lot more sense. But I've just never gotten there.
Yeah.
And I've kind of got to the point where I'm like, I don't know if I want to fight this battle anymore. I think I'd rather just go this self-storage route where the expenses are a little bit more predictable. Uh, I don't know, I kind of like the package of benefits that brings to the table better than the rental house
Yeah.
business. So, yeah.
And knowing what you know now, if you went back in time, would you talk yourself out of getting into those rental properties and then getting into a larger self storage?
No, I don't think I would have. I think it was the right move, especially at the time when I bought them. I mean, in my market, the values have like gone up like 250% or so from the price that I bought it at. I mean, it's a slam dunk deal. I mean, it just, for a lot of reasons, it made sense. And even just the experience of learning, okay, well, maybe this, I can see why people do this, but it's just not really what I want to be in. Just understanding that and like really having real world experience to back that up. This isn't just my theory on how this works. I actually know because I've done it.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for that. So yeah, I think I still would have done it if I could
No.
go back.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
So looking back at all the deals you've done, is there one that stands out as a keystone deal?
Yeah, there've actually been several that were similar to the size and scope of the one that I'll tell you about. But
Okay.
the first one that was like really a grand slam deal for me in the land business was, I had been working in the business for I think it was about 3 years, doing a lot of these like small rinky-dink lots, just buying them for a few $100 and selling them for a few thousand, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was really liking it, just the ROI on those deals. And it was just cool to have such a low amount of risk and to be able to sell them quick and pocket some cash and move on. But I was kind of getting burned out on that. There's just a lot of jumping through hoops for, kind of like pocket change, really.
Yeah.
And so I eventually came across this deal that was it was about 12 acres of property right on the shores of Lake Huron in northern Michigan. And I was able to buy this thing for $4,500. And, when I sold it, it was about 5 months later. And this was in 2011, by the way. So right smack dab in the middle of a horrendous recession in the worst state in the country to be, in Michigan, where like nobody was doing anything. And I was able to sell it for 45,000 within 5 months. If I had kept that until today, it probably would be like hundreds of thousands, honestly. But at the time, I was just very skittish. Like I just I'm gonna sell this thing. Just give me my money back. So 4,500 to 45,000 in 5 months. I did nothing to the property. I literally just bought it as is and sold it as is. And I think when I look back at that, there were a number of very instrumental things that happened through that deal. First of all, I was able to buy my first rental property. But more importantly, it made me realize, like, I don't have to be scared. I don't need to go after these tiny deals and limit myself to that. In fact, at that point, I sort of started making a shift to only go after those bigger deals and kind of ignore the smaller ones, because I realized it took like a similar amount of work to do this huge deal that would have took me to make a few $1,000s. And also, this property was in northern Michigan. I'm located in Grand Rapids. It was a 4-hour drive to get to this property, and I never even visited it. Like, to this day, I have never seen this property that I sold for $45,000. And that also made me realize, like, I don't have to be buying properties in my backyard. Like, I can get these things anywhere, really. I mean, as long as I can get the data that I need, the maps that I need, the free information online that will fill in all the blanks, probably, the only real challenge, if you can call it that, would be finding somebody nearby who can drive by the property and get some pictures for me, which it's easy to find people like that on Craigslist or a local real estate agent. And it just made me realize, like, I don't have to be stuck here in West Michigan. I can go anywhere I want, really. And that was just a big light bulb moment for me when I realized I could do a lot more. And as a result of that, I've been able to do a lot of other deals with very similar numbers to this, that if I was only looking at my backyard, I don't know that I would have come across those. So just realizing what's possible was a big deal to that.
Yeah, for sure. And as you started looking further and further out from your central core, what challenges did you encounter in terms of building those systems to allow you to do that?
Yeah, honestly, like, a lot of the systems that I needed to do it were already there. I just had this, like, belief in my mind that I need to see it with my own eyes, or else, who knows, something horrible could happen otherwise. And I will say, it's not a completely, there is some merit to that. I know there have been times when I did end up going and visiting a property on site and realizing, like, oh, okay, this is kind of different than I was thinking it was. Or, oh, somebody dumped a bunch of trash over in this corner of the property that didn't show up on satellite maps. So, like, it's not totally unnecessary to do that, but you can usually get close enough just by getting somebody to go to the property and get pictures for you. If there are big issues, it'll kind of stand out there. But I mean, part of it was just getting comfortable with the data that I was using. That's super important if you're not going to be visiting anything in person. Just because, a lot of times the data that you need to verify ownership and locations and things like that, it's all available for free online. You just have to know where to get it. And depending on what county and state you're working in, it's not necessarily all in the same place. There are services out there that make it easy and bridge these gaps, but even then, sometimes you have to look beyond that. So I think that was a pretty important thing. And also, in the land business, a lot of times, some people don't know this, but vacant land properties do not have a physical street address. A lot of them don't, which means, that creates a few issues. You can't just go to Google Maps, type in an address, and know where it is. And even if you did know where it was, you still have to know, like, okay, what is the size and shape and location of this parcel? Like, is it 5 feet wide and 100 feet long, or is it like a perfect square? And this is stuff that you don't really have to think about with houses, because it's already sort of been done for you. Like, you know where the yard is, you know where the structure is. A lot of those questions are answered. But land, there's a lot more questions you have to figure out. And just understanding where and how to get those answers is probably the biggest obstacle on the due diligence side. And some people, honestly, just like get lazy with due diligence. They just don't do it and assume it's going to be fine. And I'm not going to tell you that can never work, but I wouldn't say it's a good practice. You want to understand what you're putting your money into before you start doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And so at this point right now in your investing career, you've built a good business. You're looking at other opportunities. How has getting into real estate changed your life?
Yeah, well, for me, it's given me the opportunity to work from home and to make my own schedule and to call a lot of the shots in my life, personally and professionally. I know when I was working my job, the job that I had a few years back when I quit it and started doing this stuff full time, it wasn't even a bad job. It was actually like one of the better jobs. If I could pick any job in the world, like, it was okay. But even then, like, there's just a lot of limitations built into that. And like, for example, uh, you know, I had to be at a physical place from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. There were certain things I just wasn't allowed to do just as a result of being an employee. And that's kind of just what comes with the territory when you work for anybody. And when I look at, I've got a wife and 2 little kids, and the fact that if I need to like spend a morning with them, if I need to go to the museum or a field trip or just have fun, like, I can do that. And there's really nobody else who can tell me otherwise. And having that freedom is just an incredible thing that a lot of people never get. And I'm just super thankful that I've been able to experience that.
Yeah. No, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So Seth, if somebody's looking to find your blog or listen to your show, where can they find you?
Yeah. Well, the blog, just retipster.com. RE is for real estate. Pretty original. That's kind of like the main blog where I regularly put out articles, and we host all of our podcast episodes there. The podcast is called, wait for it, the RE Tipster Podcast. Pretty brilliant. And you can check that out on iTunes if you want. I also run a membership site at retipster.club, where it's basically a course dedicated to the land investing business. So if anybody wants to learn about that and how to do that kind of thing, it's all right there as well. But I'd say kind of the home base would be retipster.com. And you can always connect with me on social media and go from there.
Awesome. Well, Seth, just want to say thanks so much for taking the time today to share your real estate success.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me on, Seth. It was great to talk to you.
Yeah, no, you're very welcome. And to you, our viewers, I wish you well in your journey from purchase to profits. See you next time.